with regards to aid, by the way, you're wrong. If military aid, yes, it's a very good idea. All the rest is bullshit. But military aid, so the United States has a very good grip on world powers, and it has various vectors. You can't concentrate all your power simply on your financial might, or right. So first of all, you have the reserve currency of the world. That's the main handle on the entire world. You also own the trade currency for the most part, for most world. And by hooking countries up on military aid, well, people, first of all, it's basically a way to pump up your own economy in a way, right? It's basically, well, it's BS economics, but still, it is. And it's a very, very good way to get nations to do what you want them to do. So, if Americans want the United States to stay a world power, don't mess around with military aid to Israel, to Egypt, to whoever. Doesn't matter.
Well,
when it comes to other
I
type
think
of
what you're
aid,
talking about is. I think you're talking about like a larger issue. We could probably debate it at length. I've debated it with a couple friends of mine, but it does feed into what we're talking about with even with the dancing Israelis, and that topic. The same people who bring up the dancing Israelis, the same people who bring up the U.S.'s liberty, they tried to use those as essentially, magic movers, if you pardon the pun, in order to move the goalposts on the Israeli aid issue. Whereas it's those, if you were to argue honestly, I don't think that those are those actually discredit the point of view that I'm trying to bring about, which is that we can't have a relationship not just with Israel. I mean, we have the same type of relationship with Turkey. We have the same type of relationship with Pakistan, or we did. We've had it with and it's not just the aid; it's also stationing troops in Italy. Americans, you asked, do they want to remain a world power? A lot of Americans, if you were to travel here, and by all means come visit the States, come visit.
It's okay. I've been there enough.
Right. So, but if you talk to the average person, they could care less if we have a handle on what's going on.
I understand, but it's I understand.
They don't believe in
it's I understand, but they just don't understand the reason why they are the wealthiest nation in the world is exactly that status. So once the United States loses that, if they still think they're gonna get all the booty that they're getting now, no, it won't last. There's a reason.
But you're arguing for like I guess what you're talking about is there are people here, and I actually hosted one. Our friend Ophir was on the same chat with me. They're called the Groypers, and they're part of a subset of this America First movement. And they do believe in more of an isolationist policy than myself. So they believe in a much stronger trade restriction, much stronger labor restrictions, things like that. So they're part of, I guess, what you would call the populist right. And in many cases, they deviate not just on foreign policy, but on economics from the people like me who they call us Koch brother shills. They call us all sorts of things. I've never taken a dime from anyone, but they want to call any. What's that?
I think that the foreign aid thing, it's done out of U.S. interests. It's not so much that you. I mean, this is what the U.S. government believes that advances U.S. interests.
Nobody's disputing that, but we are talking about people don't believe anymore that the U.S. government represents U.S. interests.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you're talking about
you're
talking about a much deeper topic. It goes all the way.
I'm familiar with the discussion. I'm familiar with the Groypers. And look, if you decide to just drop foreign aid for everyone, Israel will not be harmed in really seriously, because you put a lot more money into our neighbors. You give a lot more aid to our neighbors than you do to us. The reason why Israel gets so much aid is that you made, after Camp David, you made a deal with Egypt to build the army, and because of that, you didn't want that to put Israel in danger. The idea was that you give more money to Israel to maintain its strategic.
No, but again, it's basically okay. So if someone doesn't know, then I think at this point all the aid. I'll just make the last point and then we can end. All the aid that the U.S. gives Israel is supposed to be spent in the U.S. or maybe 90% of it or something like that. And I think Trump wants to make it 100% if he didn't already. But the point is that it's like you turn people into addicts. You turn countries into addicts. First of all, we get all this stuff for quote unquote free. Obviously, no, it gives the U.S. leverage. But once you have all that U.S. weaponry, if you start deviating too much, well, the weapons don't last forever. You need parts, you need ammunition, you need a whole bunch of things. And if the United States decides to suddenly pull the plug, those F-16s won't continue flying on forever, or all that. So it doesn't matter. It's not a biggie, but people need to understand that it's not just handing out free money, and the main beneficiaries, obviously, other than Israelis, I mean, the main beneficiaries here really are the American people. Now, the American people might not understand it, which is fine, but the way I see it,
I would say that your position on this, if you ask the average person, they don't. It's the same thing that you tell people who, that they voted for Brexit. Well, you don't know the benefits of what you're getting from being in the European Union. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you are arguing that. I'm just bringing it as an analogy. If the people themselves don't see directly the benefit of it, and in many cases, they would say that some of the benefits themselves are problems. There's a lot of people who have a deep and abiding problem with the defense industry here because they blow up the budget here in the U.S. We have a massive defense budget here, so they don't trust it. You think they're going to trust this line of argument when you're saying, well, we bring a lot of business to Lockheed or to Northrop? They would say that is actually that they don't. Let me finish this, but because you're talking about a completely different stream of thought. This is a growing portion of the American electorate. The Iraq War made it much, much worse for advocating for what you're talking about, because people look at it as a cause and effect issue, even if in many cases it's exaggerated or deliberately misrepresented. So you're talking about a major problem, and that's why people became libertarians in the 2000s, because of the duplicity, the lack of transparency, and the corruption that went under President Bush. And I talk to people all the time who say, "Oh, I'm a conservative Republican. I believe in looking out for American interests," but they never realized that the Iraq War did not benefit American interests. That whole stream of thought has been really discredited. That's why we have the government that we have today, the Trump administration. That's why a lot of the Democrats who back in the 2000s they got elected on.
It was by far the biggest blunder that the U.S. has managed to get itself into. People don't understand that this is actually way worse than the Vietnam War in terms of what the stuff that has happened just because of that stupid fucking dumb move is insane. I mean, we're gonna see repercussions of the Iraq War for at least 2 decades to come. At least 2 decades to come. But yeah, we're getting way
getting
off topic here.
Yeah.
Um,
I will just say that the U.S. foreign aid is an American business. I don't see. I don't get involved in it because if the Americans decide to stop giving aid to Israel, Israel will. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it's about 3% of the Israeli budget. Israel can do without it. If at the same time you stop also aiding our neighbors, so our enemies basically, because you put more money into Iraq and Afghanistan. Israel will not be harmed. So it's not really anything that bothers me. It's an American issue.